that her future was already being decided without her. Lady Beatrice Whitmore had believed them when they said no one would want her. She was 26 years old, far too old by society's standards. She walked with a pronounced limp from a childhood illness that had damaged her left leg. She was plain rather than beautiful, bookish rather than charming, more comfortable with others than with light conversation. Her mother had told her gently, repeatedly, that marriage was not in her future, that she should accept her role as spinster aunt, content herself with helping raise her siblings' children, find purpose in charity work and household management. Beatrice had accepted this. What choice did she have? She'd stopped hoping for marriage by the time she was 20, stopped imagining a husband, a home of her own, children bearing her name. She taught herself to be content with her circumstances, to find satisfaction in the life available to her rather than longing for the life that wasn't. So when her father summoned her to his study on a cold January morning in 1891, she had no idea what to expect. Certainly not what he was about to tell her. "Beatrice, sit down," her father said, his tone formal. Beatrice sat, her hands folded in her lap, trying to read his expression. He looked uncomfortable, which was unusual. Her father was typically direct and unemotional about family matters. "I've made an arrangement," he began. "A marriage arrangement for you." Beatrice stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry. You're to be married, in 3 weeks' time, to Viscount Ashford." The words made no sense. Beatrice shook her head slowly. "Father, I don't understand. You said, Mother said, I'm unfit for marriage, no one would want." "Viscount Ashford has his reasons," her father interrupted. "The specifics don't concern you. What concerns you is that you will marry him on the 20th of February. The arrangements have been made." Beatrice felt as if the floor had tilted beneath her. "But I've never met Viscount Ashford. I don't know anything about him." "You'll meet him at the wedding," her father said dismissively. "Beatrice, this is an extraordinary opportunity. Ashford is wealthy, titled, respected. You should be grateful." "Grateful?" Beatrice repeated. "Father, you've spent 6 years telling me I'm unmarriageable. Now you're telling me I'm to marry a viscount in 3 weeks and I should be grateful. What aren't you telling me?" Her father's jaw tightened. "The agreement is made. You will honor it. That's all you need to know." "But why?" Beatrice pressed. "Why would a viscount want to marry me? What does he get from this arrangement?" "That is not your concern," her father said sharply. "You will marry Ashford. You will comport yourself appropriately. And you will be grateful for this chance, regardless of the circumstances that created it." He dismissed her then, and Beatrice left his study more confused than when she'd entered. Over the following days, Beatrice tried to learn anything about Viscount Ashford. She asked servants, who knew nothing. She searched newspapers for mentions of his name and found only basic society notices. He attended certain functions, owned estates in Yorkshire, was perhaps 35 years old. Nothing that explained why he would marry someone like her. Beatrice asked about the arrangement. Her mother simply repeated that she should be grateful, that this was more than she deserved, that she shouldn't ask questions that would only create problems. Beatrice's younger sister, Emma, was the only one who seemed troubled by the situation. "It doesn't make sense," Emma said quietly one evening when they were alone. "Father has always said you wouldn't marry. Mother has been preparing you for spinsterhood since you were 20. Now suddenly, there's a viscount willing to marry you, and no one will explain why." "I know," Beatrice said. "Something is wrong, but I don't know what." "What if he's cruel?" Emma asked, voicing the fear Beatrice had been trying not to acknowledge. "What if there's something terrible about him that makes him unmarriageable, and that's why he's willing to accept you?" "Then I suppose I'll learn that soon enough," Beatrice said, trying to sound calm despite the terror churning in her stomach. The wedding day arrived too quickly. Beatrice stood in her bedroom while maids dressed her in a gown her mother had selected, simple ivory silk, appropriate but not elaborate. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman who looked terrified, which was appropriate because she was. In 2 hours, she would marry a man she'd never met. A man who apparently wanted to marry her despite everything about her that supposedly made her unfit for marriage. A man whose reasons for accepting this arrangement were being kept deliberately hidden from her. The church was nearly empty. just immediate family and a few witnesses. No celebration, no grand gathering. This was clearly meant to be conducted quickly and quietly. Walked down the aisle on her father's arm, her she kept her eyes down, too frightened to look at the man waiting at the altar. When they reached the front of the church, her father placed her hand in the Viscount's and stepped back. Beatrice felt the contact through her glove, a large hand, warm and steady. She still couldn't bring herself to look up at his face. The priest began the ceremony. Beatrice heard the words as if from a great distance. When it was time for vows, she heard the Viscount's voice for the first time. I do, deep calm with an accent she couldn't quite place. Northern, perhaps. Then it was her turn. I do, she whispered. They exchanged rings. Then the priest gave permission for the Viscount to kiss his bride. Beatrice finally looked up. The Viscount was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair streaked with gray at the temples. His face was weathered, as if he spent significant time outdoors. Perhaps 40 years old, not 35 as the newspapers had suggested. His expression was neutral, revealing nothing. He leaned down and kissed her briefly, formally, then straightened and offered his arm. They walked back down the aisle as husband and wife. Beatrice still had no idea why any of this was happening. The wedding breakfast was held at her family's estate, a brief, uncomfortable meal where no one seemed to know what to say. The Viscount was polite but distant, speaking only when necessary. Beatrice's parents looked relieved, as if some burden had been lifted. When the meal ended, the Viscount stood. We should depart. The journey to Ashford Hall is several hours. Beatrice stood as well, her legs unsteady. This was it. She was leaving with this stranger, going to a place she'd never seen, starting a life she didn't understand. In the carriage, silence stretched between them. The Viscount looked out the window, apparently unconcerned with conversation. Beatrice sat rigidly, trying to manage her fear. Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. May I ask you something? The Viscount turned to look at her. Of course. Why did you agree to this marriage? Why did you want to marry me? Something flickered in the Viscount's expression, surprise perhaps. Your father didn't tell you. He told me nothing, only that the arrangement was made and I should be grateful. The Viscount was quiet for a long moment. I see, that's unfortunate. He studied her face. Lady Beatrice. Just Beatrice, she interrupted. We're married now. Beatrice, then? I agreed to this marriage because I need an heir. My first wife died in childbirth 10 years ago, along with our son. I've avoided remarrying because I have no interest in the social performance required to court someone appropriately. Your father approached me with a practical solution, a marriage of convenience, no courtship required, no expectations beyond the basic requirements. Beatrice felt something cold settle in her chest. I see. So you married me because I was available and required no effort. That's one way to phrase it, the Viscount said. Another way would be that we both benefit from this arrangement. You gain a title and security. I gain a wife without the complications of courtship. And children, Beatrice said quietly. You want children. An heir, yes. That's the primary purpose of this marriage. Beatrice looked away, fighting back tears. So that was it. She was unfit for marriage in the normal sense, too old, too plain, too damaged. But she was fit enough to bear children for a Viscount who couldn't be bothered to court anyone properly. I understand, she said, her voice carefully neutral. They didn't speak again for the remainder of the journey. Ashford Hall was imposing, a large stone manor house surrounded by extensive grounds. The Viscount helped Beatrice from the carriage with impersonal courtesy and introduced her to the housekeeper, Mrs. Dawson. Mrs. Dawson will show you to your chambers, the Viscount said. Dinner is at 8, I'll see you then. He left without another